I
Yeah.
wish I knew this 20 years ago. And I realized that the pelvic floor muscles are very intricate and Kegels are just not enough. Like there's other types of movements that you need to do to help them relax and contract in different ways. So that's why I was so happy that Alexandra is offering this specialty that's like a very niche, very targeted exercise for it. And combined with reducing bloating and the pressure in your pelvic area, you can really fix that problem. Because I don't know if you have any relatives that went through surgery, like for prolapse, but I have an aunt. She had to go through that. She said her organs were protruding the pelvic area. So she had to put in a mesh to kind of lift everything up when things are coming out because your muscles are so weak. So this is something that's preventable. Even if you don't have accidental leakage when you're jumping or sneezing and you don't have those pelvic area issues, it's a great time to prevent that from happening.
I think Pilates is a perfect method to target the pelvic floor muscles. And a lot of people don't even know what are these muscles. They don't even understand what is pelvic floor, what's the big deal about it. So that's why I'm inspired by clients like that. I have a client who I had an assessment with her online. She is in Ontario, and she told me that she struggles to do road trips and go from A to B because she needs to actually plan her route so that there is toilets, there is like public toilets on the ways because she constantly need to use the bathroom. And she said that's her normal life now, and she accepted it because everybody's saying, "Oh, it's your age, so that's normal." But it's not normal. It is common. Yes, it comes as a side effect of aging and the hormonal fluctuations and babies and childbirth, pregnancy, all that. But it's not normal. It is common, but we're here to teach you how to strengthen these muscles again. And then all that bloating, all this posture changes, everything. We're going through all that. It's really a unique program that covers not only the internal parts of the digestion, but also like the organs that they are heavily supported just by these pelvic floor muscles, you know? And this is a very basic anatomy. Imagine your pelvic floor muscles is like a trampoline, and then organs like your bladder, your bowels, and your uterus, they are supported by that. There's all sorts. There's also all the digestion system, all that is sitting on top of everything. So that's why it's important to strengthen these muscles. In the course, you know, I do give some scenarios where you imagine you are lining up to use the bathroom and there's a huge line and you activate your front pelvic floor muscles. These are the ones that hold the pee. And then when you are in a supermarket and you're about to pay for your foods and there's also a line, you feel like there's gas coming, right? You're about to go and you just squeeze in this back pelvic floor muscle so that you don't let out some wind. So these are the we talk about basically. So yeah, we go there exactly. So yes, Cindy, I pass it on to you, my nutritionist. I'm so
Thank
happy I found
you.
you.
Oh, thanks, Alexander. Yeah, we've been helping each other, hormone balancing, gut health, and then with the exercises to tone everything up. Because honestly, as we get older with the hormones dropping, I find gravity takes a more active toll on our body, like more than
Oh yeah.
before. So yeah, feel free to comment and put your questions in the chat box. I'm going to
Sure.
start with a couple of slides on gut health, and then Alexandra is going to follow with some ABCs of pelvic floor exercises. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Yes, the pelvic floor is like you said, the trampoline or more like a hammock, that holds everything up. So if you have inflammation, if you have bloating, if you have irregular issues like diarrhea or constipation, that could put a strain on that hammock because of the excess inflammation there. And it could also cause, fatigue because there's more contraction. So you're trying to contract everything and hold everything up. And when something is contracted for a long time, it becomes more rigid. So that's why, like Alexandra, she talks about relaxation, not just contracting, but how to really relax all those muscles. So here are some problems or challenges that people can get, with their digestive system. You can feel bloated, cramping, and I'd like to hear from you if you experience any of this. So do you have irregular bowel movements or constipation? Do you have any indigestion? Like if you eat certain foods, you might get cramps or have to run to the bathroom. Sometimes indigested food in the toilet. I'd like to do just take a few minutes of your time to do this activity. If you have a pen and paper nearby, I'd like you to just write down everything you ate yesterday, if you can remember. So yeah, if you can remember what you ate yesterday. If you can't, then think about what you traditionally eat. Like, what are you used to eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner, your snacks that you bring on the road with you, snacks that you bring to the office with you. What about in the evening? Do you eat very late? Do you binge eat on certain foods? And what are the drinks that you normally drink, like through the day? Do you have herbal teas? Do you drink mostly water? And is it filtered water, or is it tap water, or is it bottled water? Do you drink a lot of coffee? Do you also have soda? You know, do you have a lot of sweets in your drinks? And if you were to drink, like if you're someone who drinks a lot of coffee or tea, do you sweeten it? And if you do, what kind of sweetener do you use? Do you use sugar? Do you use maple syrup, honey? Do you use, sucralose or stevia? And also, what is it that you put in your coffee? Do you put creamers? A lot of people love putting these creamers that have thickening agents that could irritate the gut too, that have like oils that, can cause inflammation to the liver. And if the liver isn't functioning properly, then the bile doesn't come properly. Your gallbladder can also be congested, and then you won't be able to digest fats. So that's a very big concern. People who are not able to digest fats can then have fatty liver, they can have cholesterol issues. So it all comes back to how efficient your gut is. So keep writing and keep this list next to you as I continue with the slides. So as a detective of your own health, sometimes it's really worth kind of like going through the list of what's causing your irritation. So number one, it could be food sensitivities. So I have a lab test that only requires 2 drops of blood, and it could measure over 220 types of foods. So you can see what foods are more triggering you with antibodies, and your body's immune system is actually activated when you consume those foods. So that's number one. Do you have low stomach acid? So that's another thing. Do you feel a lot of acid reflux? Do you have a lot of acid in your stomach that's causing you this burn? And then the food just kind of sits there. Do you feel heavy after you eat? These are all things that like you really need to pay attention and journal even for a few days to see the trend. Do you have a lot of stress? And if you do you bring that to the table? Like when you're eating, are you stressed out and scoffing it down? Are you in a rush? Also, do you combine your food in a way where it causes bloating? So for example, if you have a lot of meat with carbs, like a lot of carbs with the protein, that could also slow down digestion. So if you're someone who gets bloated after a meal like that, it's best to just have the meat without any carbs. Just have the meat with the veggies. And then you'll notice you'll feel a little bit lighter because it's less draining on the digestive system. So these are things that, we help you to detect, like, do you have low bile? There's ways to check for that in the toilet. Like if you see any fats on the toilet, that can indicate you're not really absorbing the fats properly. And also one thing I'm going to talk about later is something called glyphosate, which is a herbicide. It's something that's sprayed in a lot of our foods, and it causes part of the microbiome, like the good bacteria, to die off because it's a poison. It's basically meant to kill bacteria and to kill weeds and all that, and they spray it in a lot of food. So those are areas where we can look at and change some of the food so that you don't get exposed to glyphosate so much. So for people who are gluten intolerant, for example, there's been a study where they actually found people who eat certain gluten in Italy and they're okay with it. But if they're in America or in some parts in Europe that have glyphosate, but they will react to it. So it could be that they're reacting to what glyphosate does and not so much what the gluten is doing. So these are some areas we could look at. And parasites could be another thing. Parasites are very common. If you have pets, for example, cats, dogs, if you've been on the beach and you've walked barefoot, if you've been in the lake, if you've had sushi, and I'll do another webinar just on parasites alone, but that could also cause a lot of anxiety in the gut because, they're alive and they bury into the walls of the intestine. There's actually a microfilm that they hide in. So doing a parasite cleanse might be a good thing. Just going back to the gut, it's not just really related to bloating, but it actually is related to your brain as well. Like the gut is your second brain. So if there's anxiety or unsettling feelings in the gut, it could really impact your overall health. It could impact your immunity, your sleep, your skin, and even, mental clarity. So in the program that we're going to talk about later, and even in any protocol, even for yourself, three things to remember when you're thinking about gut health is the 3 R's. It's very popular. You'll see it if you type in like, what are the 3 R's of gut health? You'll know, but this is what a lot of naturopaths will practice. So the first is to remove. So of course, remove any irritants. If you know what it is, stay away from that for a period of time. It could be alcohol. Some of these things are very harsh on the gut. It could be caffeine. The second is to replace. So replace just means if you're weak in digestive enzymes, then you got to add that. So there's chewables that you can get at the health food store or pharmacies. If it's stomach acid that you're weak in, well, then drink some apple cider vinegar. You can get tablets that have HCl, and it will boost your digestive system so that you can actually break down the food. So that's replace. And replace any of the irritants. So let's say gluten is causing issues, then you're going to go for gluten-free. If dairy is going to cause you issues, then swap it to something else. So there's like food swap charts and recipes. So that's something to investigate more into. So that's the number 2, replace. And then the third is to re-inoculate, which means you want to replace your gut bacteria with more healthy gut bacteria. And they've done studies where they've taken healthy bacteria from humans, like from a healthy human being, and they put it into, let's say, a person who's very sick, like with autistic children. That's actually, it's called the Zoe Project, I believe, and it was for autistic children. And their autistic symptoms actually started going away with the new microbiome, and that's called fecal matter transplant. So, but what you want to do is you want to start getting some probiotics, fermented foods, and cutting out, like the alcohol and the sugar that causes the imbalance in the first place, and then re-inoculate, meaning having those probiotics back in to regenerate into your gut. And then stress, reduce stress as much as possible. So I do offer testing for it. Like if you need like a GI map, for example, that could test your microbes. I can refer you out to naturopaths that also do that. But the first thing I would do with anybody, just generally speaking, with gut issues and belly fat, and that's another thing, because belly fat and that visceral fat that goes into our organs, that also can strain our pelvic floor. So one thing to do is to cut out the sugar. Sugar suppresses our immune system, and really look into the ingredients. So anywhere that has sweeteners even, or artificial sweeteners, and refined carbs, try to limit that as much as possible. So when you look at your list, the one that you just wrote down for yesterday, can you tell me if there's anything in there that's sugary?
Wine.
Okay, yeah, wine. It was just Halloween yesterday, so it's kind of
I know,
unfair.
I was like, I didn't have any candy yesterday, to be fair. That's great. But
Awesome. So take a look at that list. And is there anything in there, even if there's like sauces or salad dressings or drinks that are sweet, you can note that down. And it's just for your more like practice to do for food journal to kind of see if there's anything that's triggering bloating or diarrhea or reactions.
So, a question about the sugar in the bread and rice. Okay, there is a trend, and I think you told me about it. For now, I love having my sourdough loaf of bread, and what I do, I slice it and put it in the freezer. So then, when I'm craving for it, like yesterday, I had eggs on toast, so I put my sourdough frozen slices into the toaster, and then they were nice and fresh, like perfect. And I heard that if you put your bread in the freezer, it reduces the glycemic
The glycemic index.
Yes. Is that true? It's just a trend.
Freezing it kind of changes the starches so that it doesn't spike your insulin as much.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I
More recently was using coconut oil to cook your rice.
that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
go. Yes, with the rice. So when you put it in the rice cooker, what do you do exactly differently?
You just add like a teaspoon of coconut oil and you just cook it. And I guess also the fats itself, the MCT oil, like the oils in the coconut, when you're digesting, it actually creates a buffer, so the sugar doesn't impact you as quickly.
Okay, great.
It doesn't
That's
spike your insulin.
okay, great. Some hacks, basically. Still keep eating your favorite foods like bread and rice, but yeah.
Yeah, and so the second tip, I know some of you already know this, it's really to chew well, like to chew slowly, perhaps 30 to 40 bites. And so if you look at your list of food, do you recall if you've eaten fast, if you've been in a rush when you were eating that food, if you've swallowed without really chewing it? So it's just a practice of being more mindful when you're eating to really chew well, take your time. And by doing that, those food particles become much smaller. So your belly is able to digest them easier. And your saliva has enzymes that can break it down first before it gets to your stomach. Also, your stomach needs time to generate the stomach acid. So if you swallow it really fast, then the stomach acid is not quite there yet. So it won't digest as well. Chewing well will give it that time and will also trigger the feeling of being full. So you tend not to overeat. And you're probably going to inhale less air as you're slowly chewing the food. So that part is really important. Stomach acid, honestly, a lot of people think, oh, because I have heartburn, I have reflux, that means I have too much acid. But 90% of the cases, it's just the opposite. Because you have stomach acid, it means that the door that normally closes, it's not closing. It doesn't get the signal to close. So if you add more acid, the signal will then get the door to close and you won't get all of this into your throat. Also, if you have not enough stomach acid, there's more gas, that can start bubbling back up. So that can cause heartburn as well. And so my tip number 3 is really to limit drinking while you're eating, like limit a lot of water intake or cold juices, because you don't want to dilute your stomach acid. You want to preserve it as much as possible. And another thing is stomach acid will signal pepsin, which is something that helps to break down proteins. So if you don't have enough stomach acid, maybe your protein will not be digested as well or absorbed as well. Stomach acid also signals a type of chemical that helps you absorb vitamin B12. It's called the intrinsic factor. So if you look it up, it's intrinsic factor. And if you don't have enough stomach acid, you don't get the intrinsic factor. So you won't be able to get the B12 from red meat, let's say. And B12 is so important for red blood cells. So that's why a lot of vegetarians, they have to take B12, iron supplements, D, vitamin D. They have to take all of this that's normally in, the meats and the organ meats. So again, if you don't have enough stomach acid, number 1 is to boost it. You can take capsules, you can take apple cider vinegar. And there's a little test that you can use to check to see if you have enough stomach acid. It's basically using a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda in half a cup of water first thing in the morning. So if you're interested in doing this at-home test to see if you have enough stomach acid, put a note in the chat box and I can email it to you. So then I can send you the full instructions. But basically, my tip number 4 to increase stomach acid is just add a little bit of apple cider vinegar while you're eating, or have some pickle juice while you're eating, something a little bit sour, sprinkle lemon into your food. And then tip number 5 is, to me, is one of the biggest things when it comes to gut health, is to avoid glyphosate. So there's a website called the detoxproject.org. I can send that in the notes after this video. There's another website called ewg.org, which is Environmental Working Group. And both of these organizations, they study glyphosate's impact on human health. And there's a lot of cancers that are related to it. There's lawsuits that has been done from people, especially farmers, because they use a lot of these herbicides and pesticides and they get cancer. So, I mean, it's very much a proven thing, but it's not banned yet. It's banned in a lot of places in Europe, but in North America, we still have a lot of it. 75% of our oats, soy, corn are all sprayed with glyphosate. So out of these couple of years that I've been doing this, I've actually honed into this one supplement. It's called Biome Medic. And it's the only glyphosate detox supplement out there on the market that's been proven to remove glyphosate. Like, they've tested people's urine before and after. It shows up in the hair. It shows up even in the umbilical cord. The children are born with glyphosate already in their system because it's so ingrained in everything we eat. So it's hard to avoid it. Even if you take 100% organic food, you're still going to get some glyphosate because of the crosswind and the water flow. So Biome Medic is a supplement that has fulvic acid, probiotics. So if you're interested, I can send you a link to that. It's from a company called Purium, and I can send you the information. But it's just to actually get more aware of food that has glyphosate. And to be honest, I was quite surprised that Cheerios has the most glyphosate, and we're feeding it to kids. Also, even Nature Valley, there's oats, like from Quaker Oats, that have a lot of glyphosate because it's been sprayed after harvesting. So that's really one thing, if you can take maybe even 30% of your food organic, that could probably help just reduce the level of glyphosate. And if you don't have like the processed foods, because that's where most of the glyphosate is, like in crackers, where the oats are, the breads, the crackers, the cookies, where they use a lot of the corn chips, unless you go for organic corn chips. So it really does show up in a lot of those types of foods. And again, I'll send you the websites, and they have all these lists of foods that have glyphosates, and you can try to avoid or at least reduce it. We put a lot of this information into the 6-week program. It's an online course that you can take. It's yours for life if you enroll. And it's basically 6 modules of nutrition with 4 meal plans. So the meal plans actually tell you what to eat for protein-rich foods, to cut out those carbs and refined foods. And at the end of it, we do intermittent fasting because we're trying to lower the bloat and we're trying to lower insulin, like the belly fat. We start off with understanding how insulin affects our belly fat. We start talking about perimenopause, which is important. Like even if you're not there yet, it's good to know what to expect. And then module 2, we talk about insulin resistance and how people with time, especially if you're used to eating a lot of carbs, like for me, it's rice, right? Chinese people, we always eat rice. And I've started to notice that I'm getting belly fat and I need to support the insulin sensitivity. Because when I eat it, I get tired. And in the past, I could do stuff, after eating some rice. Now I feel like sugar has a stronger effect on me, even my eyesight. So I've started taking certain minerals to help the pancreas, because if you support your pancreas to support the insulin production, that can really help too. And lowering carbs, intermittent fasting, that all helps to lower the sugar spike in your blood. And then the third thing we talk about, Alexandra, we love this one. It's hydration using electrolytes. Alexandra does mermaid Pilates during that time. Like I think it's like an ocean theme for week 3. And then we have week 4, which is adding fermented foods and collagen-rich food to heal the gut. Because if your gut is inflamed, you want something to soothe it. So you can use bone broth. You can use different types of like ginger broths and purees. And that's week 4. And then week 5, it's all about helping you relax. Because if you're in fight or flight, your body can't heal. You have to go into rest and digest. So we dedicate a whole week to improve sleep, lower inflammation, meditation, breathing techniques. And then the last week is intermittent fasting. And there's a meal plan there. So does anybody here do intermittent fasting already? Or have you tried like just eating a little bit later and then not eating after a certain time at night?
I do the thing, not eat after 7
Yeah.
to 8 in the morning, and then I stop eating. That's it. I stop eating at 7, like 7 at night,
Okay.
and then I don't eat until 8 in the morning.
Okay, so it's like I guess
Like a
12
12 hour,
hours, 12
hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And how do you feel when you do that?
At the beginning, it was a little hard. Your brain was telling you eat something, but you get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it. And I know some people in the beginning, they get headaches because they're used to certain energy for the brain in that time. So we have ways in the program where we teach you how to drink savory drinks. So go with salty sea salt and Celtic salt to give you electrolytes, and that will get rid of the headaches. So you still giving you energy in the morning and then in the evening. So Alexandra, talk about the ABCs of pelvic health, just to show us a little bit about our anatomy.
Absolutely. Basically, the anatomy of our pelvic floor. So what happens, any movement we do when we are walking or running or our trampoline muscles, our pelvic floor muscles are, supporting our organs, our main organs, bladder, bowel, and uterus, but they also support the digestion system. That's why it is related. And so the more bloated, the more constipated, the more you have heaviness from the food that you don't digest correctly. It also adds pressure into the organs, and then the organs add pressure to our pelvic floor muscles. And our pelvic floor muscles, I'm just going to go through them really quick. The front muscles is our bladder, when we are able to control our urine. And then the back muscles is when we are able to control our farts, basically. That's the muscles that we activate to control our windy secrets. So these are the muscles I'm going to be working on. But to be honest, as a Pilates instructor, certified now since 2015, in London, by the way, Ginny, the Pilates, it's so intuitive, working on your core, that is supporting your pelvic floor muscles. The way I teach it with the breath instructions, it really supports your pelvic floor muscles. It doesn't add more pressure. And I can quickly explain with an exercise at the end of our session. But I wanted to go through some of my slides. Slide number 1. So the healthy functions of a pelvic floor, like I said, it supports your organs. It helps you control bladder and bowels. It helps you have healthy, sexy connection, intimacy. The breathing is flowing, it's smooth, it's fluid, it's not constricted. And of course, you are having a healthy pregnancy and childbirth. And these are the basic 5 functions of our pelvic floor. And when these are disturbed, we have issues like organ prolapse. That's what Cindy earlier on the call was talking about, surgery of one of her aunt. Sometimes you have risky pregnancy and childbirth that affects our pelvic floor muscles. Incontinence can come, like we said, with age and hormonal fluctuations. It doesn't have to be related to childbirth. Of course, like we said, gut health. I put in green the sections that Cindy's specializing. All these conditions, celiac, Crohn's disease, they're all related to the irritation of our bowels. So yes, intimacy, painful intimacy can be affected. I had a pelvic floor injury when I was mountain biking downhill. I used to do that like a crazy single lady that I was. I didn't have kids then. So I was doing crazy sports. And one of that downhill mountain days, it went really bad. And I actually teared some muscles down there. So yes, obesity is quite a big thing here, especially in this side of the world, in the US. And I think it's because of what Cindy already mentioned. You mentioned about the glyphosate that affecting our food. So there is a lot of things that not so regulated in this side of the world. And then we have other conditions, hysterectomy, and of course, natural aging and hormonal fluctuations. And the things I deal a lot with in class is back pain issues and joint issues, and all that affects our pelvic health as well. So in the modules that Cindy shared, we kind of twinned them up a little bit. We did matchy, and we decided to basically in module 1, Cindy's going to be talking about the introduction and connecting the dots of what is perimenopause, what's the sugar, insulin, and weight gain relation. And then I take you through the ABCs, which are the anatomy we just quickly did anyway, but the ABCs is the alignment, the posture, the way we carry ourselves, the way we sit, the way we eat, the way we drive the car, how we are at work on our desk. The posture also affects our pelvic floor muscles and adds pressure. So that's going to be all in module 1. So that creates awareness. So you guys start to be aware of what is supposed to be happening down there on your pelvic floor. And so module 2, I teach you all about breathing correctly and how to engage your core. And we're going to do some really gentle exercises where we hug our lower belly with our breathing on the exhale. It's really simple. It takes a while for the brain to understand it, but once you figure it out, your workouts will change forever. You go on autopilot and your whole body starts protecting your pelvic floor muscles as you work out. So it takes a while to pick on it, but once you figure it out, it's just autopilot. Then we talk about, like Cindy said, on the hydration, we're going to have some movements, some flows, inspired by Joseph Pilates' sea creatures that he likes. And then on the macros and protein on module 4, we're going to introduce planks because let's admit it, as we get older, we lose some muscle mass. And so when we get our muscles strong, we don't lose them. Actually, it's the common saying, like if you don't use them, you lose them. So we don't need to have props like weights and things like that. We can actually do planks that lift our body. And there's modifications, so don't panic. There's planks on your knees, planks you can do on the chair. It's just one plank for all, you know, I'm going to be modifying it. And then module 5 is the hormone balance and sleep. So I'm going to bring you to a nice breathing, relaxing Pilates when you are able to activate and release your pelvic floor muscles. Things like child pose, it's very good for releasing your pelvic floor muscles. And then on the last one, I kind of wrap everything we learned in the 6th week. And then I let you off to the world with what you learn and you practice in your everyday life. The way you wash your dishes on the sink, the way you lift heavy things. You are aware how you're sitting on your desk and how you are driving in your car. Simple everyday things. You're going to be so aware and so in tune with your body that you'll be able to correct it and improve not only your muscles, but your overall health. So it's a very holistic approach.
Thank you, Alexandra. That was great. I always like hearing more about the anatomy and envisioning how this hammock, this works.
Did you guys know, like a little tip, did you know that your bladder sits exactly behind your pubic bone? And it's just like a tiny little thing. This is real size. So I'm going to remove it. And there's more. I'm going to go about bladder health as well. So this is your bladder. It's not much, guys. And goes straight into, we have 3 holes on our pelvic floor. Guys only have 2. So it goes in one P, the vagina, and your rectum. So yeah, there is so much. Our body is amazing. Amazing.
Thank you. Yes, so I just had 2 questions regarding what Cindy was talking about. So I have been diagnosed with fatty liver as well, but I do notice a lot of bile in my stool when I'm eating real healthy food. Is that a result of like more stomach acid in my stomach or less?
Yeah, so normally if you have congestion in your liver, so something maybe the bile is thicker, or maybe there's things that are kind of stuck in the ducts over time, then you have less bile. If you have less bile, then the fats don't get absorbed into the body, and then you'll see it in your stool. You'll see some fats in the bowl, in the toilet bowl. So normally what I recommend is to supplement with bile salts. With this, if you're vegan, there's actually a supplement called Tadka. You can get that. It has choline. These are the constituents of bile. So bile salts is basically taken from grass-fed cows, bovine. They're actually from animals. They take the bile from the animal. So for some people who are really not into that, they will take choline and they will take Tadka, which is, it's very bitter. It's a very bitter capsule, but you take it when you eat something fatty like eggs, ice cream, avocado, coconut, and anything that's a little fatty. You'll take that and it'll boost the bile. And over time, it actually helps since you're boosting the bile, it helps to loosen it. If you can imagine that. If you have very thick bile and you're adding more bile, it will help to loosen, to make it less thick. And over time, your gallbladder will be healthier. Some people don't have to supplement it for life. They just supplement it for maybe 3 to 6 months, when you're basically adding it back into your body. So for people who have diarrhea, for example, who have vomited in the past and it's very extreme, who've had these, gastro issues, there is a tendency to lose bile. And your body, believe it or not, it actually reabsorbs almost 98% of its own bile because it's like liquid gold. It does not want to waste bile. So if you're actually losing it while you're, because of the stool or because of the fatty liver, for example, if you're not being able to reabsorb that bile back, then you need to supplement to be able to absorb the fats and the healthy fats. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and the typical symptoms of somebody who has trouble absorbing fats could be very dry skin, or like there's skin issues like eczema, or a tendency for, skin to break, let's say on the heels or on their fingers. It could also affect their vision because remember, vitamin A is also fat soluble. So if you're not able to absorb fats, you're not going to get in that vitamin A. So it could affect vision. It could affect the vitamin D absorption, which could also affect bones. So yeah, absorbing fats is very, very crucial. So it could be an area where you want to explore, and we can talk about it more after the call if you'd like. If you want to explore some supplements to help you boost the bile in the body.
Thank you. Yeah, I have both of them with what you just said, dry skin and stuff like that. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome. So I wanted to say, for you guys that are here, I really appreciate your time. I also want to hear your opinion because this is a course that we're about to launch in a week's time, probably early next week. And it's something we really put a lot of our heart and passion into. And I just want to get your feedback. Like, do you think that this topic is important? Do you feel like it could be helpful? And also, do you know anybody who might need this help? Like, even if you don't feel it's for you right now, if you can just spread the word, that would be so great. And if you have a friend or a relative who makes a purchase, Alexandra and I, we'd love to give you a gift. So we can give you, from myself, I would offer a discount throughout all my products, like the tests, the ebooks. You can get a site-wide discount. And then Alexandra, she's so generously offered a whole week of free Pilates classes, live classes, so you can experience her app and her actual workouts.
So if you were to go into the app, you have you usually have access to it from our website. So you go Lovejoy app. Then it's free to download, free to register, and you have already a free Intro to Pilates 10 days program. So this is for free. You guys can kickstart your Pilates journey and you get your guide. So if you've never done Pilates, you need to go in there, and it's just a PDF file and it takes you through step by step of what you should be doing. Yes, so you get all your manual, basically, your Pilates manual. In there, I have Cindy has a permanent spot, nutrition tips to glow from within. I have Pilates with weights, but the one I gave you access, you do have access to all of that, but the one that is the full access, it's the live calendar. And if you want, you download the app, and in there, I'm giving you a week free of classes. So that means you go into the calendar, and for example, Sunday, my next class is Sunday at 9 a.m. And all you have to do is put your email, and you get the Zoom link, name, surname, your email, and you get the Zoom link to join the live classes. These are streaming live. The rest of them are pre-recorded. So if you want to relax and work out before bed, I highly recommend you guys try my Cozy Pilates on a big ball. They're all in a big ball. Some of them have elastic bands, some of them just a wall or a tennis ball, but they're mostly made to relax you and help you get rid of that tension at the end of the day. Pelvic floor is my favorite. And then our program is going to be taking a nice spot here, Gut and Pelvic Health Reset. It's in the making as we speak, hot stuff. You guys had a little intro already. So yes, this is all happening through the app, and it's free to download on the Apple Store or Google or as a web. Here you saw the web app version. Yeah, I'm really proud of this. App is growing, it's getting better. I'm getting lots of good feedback, and everybody loves the core, basically app work core and pelvic floor, because we all need it to be stable. You need the muscles from your core. Once your core is strong, you don't have any issues anywhere else. Your joints are healthy, your shoulders, your hips. If your core is stable and strong, you can manage any sport and go through life with no other sport either, if you just want to do core work.
Thank you so much. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and you'll have the replay right after this call.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.